Thank you for joining us today. We'll start the meeting in a couple of minutes.
Welcome, and thank you for joining this virtual hearing. I'm Lauren Zeiss. I'm the Director of the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, also called OEHHA. Today's hearing is on our proposed Proposition 65 regulation to add a safe harbor warning for significant exposures to glyphosate in consumer products. We appreciate the interest in this proposed regulation and that you've taken the time to attend this hearing. And now I'll turn the hearing over to Christy Moriaka, an attorney in our Office of Chief Counsel, and she'll go over some housekeeping details regarding how you can best participate in today's hearing. Christy?
Hello, everyone. I will be assisting with the logistics for the meeting today. If you would like to access closed captioning, you can access the live video stream with automated closed captioning at https://video.calepa.ca.gov. We have also put that web address in the chat. Today, you will have the opportunity to provide public comments about the proposed amendments to the regulation. If you would like to speak, it would be helpful if you can submit a virtual speaker card, but it is not required. You can find it on the web at forms.office.com/G/HNJ551G4UF as in Frank. You can see that information and address here on the slide, and we will also put it in the chat box. If you have submitted a speaker card prior to the meeting, we have received it. And if you have not submitted a speaker card, please submit it now. You will be called on and unmuted in the order that the cards are received. If you have not submitted a virtual speaker card and you would like to speak at today's hearing, you will get the chance to raise your virtual hand to speak. You will be called on by the hearing officer after the speakers who have completed the virtual speaker card. You can also submit brief text comments to OEHHA by typing your comments in the Q&A box of the control panel. You may send in your comments at any time during the hearing. OEHHA encourages the public to submit detailed comments through our online comment process or via mail or in-person drop-off. I will now turn the hearing back over to Dr. Zeiss.
Thank you, Christy. Shortly, our OEH's Chief Counsel, Carol Moynihan Cummings, will give you an overview of the proposed safe harbor warning regulation for glyphosate. We're really looking forward to your comments on our proposed warning language. Now I'd like to introduce OEH's Deputy Director for Scientific Programs, Dr. Vince Cogliano. Dr. Cogliano is serving as the hearing officer today.
Good afternoon. My name is Vince Cogliano, and I want to thank you for joining us for this virtual hearing. Under the provisions of the Administrative Procedure Act, this hearing is provided by OEHHA to hear your comments regarding the proposed Proposition 65 Safe Harbor Warning for exposures to glyphosate. OEHHA considers this proceeding to be a quasi-legislative hearing because it is carrying out a rulemaking function delegated to it by statute. OEHHA will consider all relevant comments made during this hearing. The director of OEHHA has designated me to conduct this hearing on her behalf, and I will be doing so in accordance with the provisions of the Administrative Procedure Act. The entire proceeding is being recorded and transcribed by a certified court reporter. The transcript and all materials presented at this hearing will be included in the administrative record for this rulemaking. Because this is a formal public hearing, we will essentially be in listening mode today. Some of you perhaps have been to pre-regulatory workshops that we or other state agencies have held for pre-regulatory proposals, where there are often back and forth discussions with commenters. Today, we will answer procedural questions if you have any. We may ask very simple clarifying questions of commenters, but formal public hearings are not set up for the kinds of discussions you may have seen in other kinds of Proposition 65 related meetings and workshops. Today, we're here to listen. If we adopt a final regulation, we will provide written responses to all relevant comments we receive at today's hearing, as well as written comments. If you have a detailed comment, we strongly recommend that you submit it to us in writing by the deadline so we can give it full consideration. The public comment period for the proposed regulation has been extended to provide commenters the opportunity to consider the information provided at this hearing when submitting their comments. The comment period will close on October 7th, 2021. For organizational purposes, people who have submitted virtual speaker cards will be called in order. And for those who have not, there will be time at the end of the hearing when you can raise your virtual hand and we will call on you to speak. We ask that in the interest of time, you limit your comments to 5 minutes per person. I will be the timekeeper and will tell you when your time is up. If you agree with a commenter who spoke before you, please state that when you're called. There's no need to repeat the comment. To enable the audience to hear you and to ensure that your comments are recorded for the record, please speak into your microphone when you are called on to speak. It is helpful to the court reporter if you state your name and the organization you represent, if any. However, you are not required to do so in order to speak. At this time, Ms. Carol Moynihan Cummings, OEH's Chief Counsel, will provide some background information about the proposed amendments to the regulations and the scope of this hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Cogliano. To save the time required to read into the record each provision of the proposed amendments, I will provide a copy of the text of the amendments along with the public notice, the initial statement of reasons, and related documents to the court reporter to have them included in the hearing record. As required by the Administrative Procedure Act, the public and interested parties were notified of these proposed regulations 45 days prior to today's hearing. The original notice of the proposed regulation was published in the California Regulatory Notice Register and on OEHHA's website on July 23rd, 2021. Next slide. By way of introduction, the proposed amendments would add 2 provisions to the Safe Harbor Warning regulations to provide optional content and methods for providing a warning for significant exposures to glyphosate. The proposed amendments are intended to provide an easily understandable safe harbor warning for businesses to use for exposures to glyphosate from consumer products. Businesses can also use the general consumer product warning for these exposures. I also wanted to mention that this regulation does not determine whether or not a warning is required for any particular exposure. This is a safe harbor warning that a business can use once it has determined that a warning is required. So now we'll go through each element of the warning. So of course, the warning would include the usual warning symbol, which is on the screen here now. And for this warning, we have included the phrase California Proposition 65 warning, rather than the more generic signal word warning, to make clear the warning is being given because it is required under California's Proposition 65. While the chemical glyphosate was listed by OEHHA as causing cancer based on a finding by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, that glyphosate probably is carcinogenic to humans, other authorities, including US EPA, have determined that glyphosate is unlikely to cause cancer or have found the evidence inconclusive. This is an uncommon situation, so OEHHA has determined that consumers should be advised about the fact that these agencies disagree with each other on the carcinogenic potential of glyphosate exposures. We have also added additional information to add context for individuals who see the warnings, since an individual person's cancer risk is affected by a variety of factors. And given that exposures to glyphosate can be reduced by using simple things such as wearing gloves, washing hands, and removing clothing on which the chemical has been spilled, we are directing consumers to our website for that and other relevant information about glyphosate. Overall, we believe this proposed warning language provides important information for consumers prior to an exposure to glyphosate, so they can make informed decisions about these exposures. The initial statement of reasons provides additional background and details for this proposed rulemaking. We're looking forward to hearing your comments on this proposal. I will now turn the hearing back over to Dr. Corigliano.
Thank you very much. Now is the time to listen to public commenters. I will call on people who submitted speaker cards first. I will give you a 1-minute warning and let you know when your time is up. So our first speaker is Zen Honeycutt from Moms Across America.
If you're on, can you please raise your virtual hand? I don't see that person in our attendee list. Maybe we can move on to the next
Okay.
speaker and then come back to that person.
Yeah, we'll do that. So our second speaker is Pedram Esfandiari. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced your name, representing Baum, Headland, Arster, and Goldman. I believe Is Pedram? I see your name in the list of participants. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Director, and all members of OEHHA for granting the public this opportunity to comment on the proposed rulemaking. I'd like to introduce myself briefly. I'm an attorney at Baum, Headland, Arista, and Goldman in Los Angeles, California, and our firm tried the first 2 cases against Monsanto Company pertaining to exposure to glyphosate and the risk of cancer that pertains. We represented individuals who've been diagnosed with cancer as a result of being exposed to Roundup and glyphosate in Roundup, and we prevailed in the state court on pretty successful jury verdicts on behalf of those individuals. During the course of that litigation, I came to be very familiar with the regulatory history of glyphosate, as well as Monsanto's history with this product. And our firm has consistently been involved in submitting information to OEHHA regarding glyphosate scientific background and regulatory background in assisting the agency making public health decisions concerning this product. With respect to the current proposed rulemaking, I'd like to address specifically the proposed language of the warning label, specifically where it refers to other agencies disagreeing with IARC's determination regarding glyphosate. Particularly the US EPA is referenced in the proposed warning label. However, there have been facts that have developed over the course of time, most recently, that indicate that the EPA's determination regarding glyphosate has not been consistent, and it is not accurate to state that the EPA has found glyphosate to be not carcinogenic. In fact, in 2016, prior to the EPA's report being published on glyphosate, the agency had drafted a report that was not published, wherein 7 epidemiologic studies, those are studies of glyphosate exposure in human populations, have been assessed by the EPA. And the EPA concluded, and I quote from the unpublished report, the results of 7 independent epidemiologic studies reporting on the association between exposure to glyphosate and risk of NHL were consistent in reporting elevated risks of NHL, which is a cancer, associated with exposure to glyphosate with little statistical heterogeneity. On the basis of this observation, the agency went ahead and concluded the available epidemiologic studies provide suggestive evidence of carcinogenic potential between glyphosate exposure and increased risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This report and this conclusion were not published. Instead, the EPA's final report contained pretty much the same analysis, but a completely different conclusion. And that conclusion being that glyphosate was unlikely to cause cancer, which is inconsistent with the unpublished report and its initial conclusions. The reason for the EPA taking a contrary stance and conclusion in this final report in 2016 was, as we have documented and shown through the various trials against Monsanto, because of Monsanto's pressure on the agency and its intimate relationships with EPA officials, that led to Monsanto being able to suppress conclusions such as this that were in the internal confidential report prior to the EPA's publication of its 2016 determination regarding glyphosate. I encourage OEHHA to consult the public record as developed through the trials, which details the specific ways in which Monsanto was able to lobby and put pressure on the agency to depart from its initial conclusion.
1 minute.
And to take into account the full historical record concerning this product as developed through litigation over the course of now 6 years. I thank OEHHA for your time, and I will submit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Esfandiari. Our next scheduled speaker is John Baltorf of Clean Earth for Kids. John, are you on the meeting? I don't
see him on the attendee list.
I don't either. Okay, so we'll go to the 4th speaker who submitted a speaker card. It's Larry Bragman, who's speaking on his own behalf. I don't see that name either. Okay, let me go back through the scheduled speakers. Is Zen Honeycutt on the line? John Baltorf on the line? Larry Bragman? Okay, let me turn the meeting over now to anybody who would wish to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand. You can do that by going to the reactions button. If you don't see a reactions button, go to the three dots where it says more, and one of the options should be raise hand. So I'll wait for another minute. Does anybody wish to speak? Is there anybody on the hearing today who wishes to speak? This is your last chance to signal. Okay, hearing or seeing no additional requests to speak, I close the hearing. The office will accept written public comments until October 7th, 2021. We strongly recommend that you submit public comments electronically rather than in paper form. Comments may be submitted electronically through our website at oehha.ca.gov/comments. Written comments also may be mailed to the address provided in the notice. Thank you for attending this hearing today. The hearing is closed.